The average American bass angler spends $327 a year on lures they'll use once, lose to a tree, or watch collect dust in a drawer. That number comes from a 2023 consumer behavior study on recreational fishing expenditures, and it is not an outlier. It is the median, $327. Not on rods, not on reels, on lures. Specifically, on lures that were never going to work the way the packaging said they would, sold by companies that were acquired by private equity firms who have never held a fishing rod in their lives, designed by marketing committees who benchmark to MSRP targets, not to base behavior. Here's what makes that number worse. The 4 lures that consistently show up in Bassmaster Elite Series weight slips, the 4 that tournament anglers run back to when a check is on the line, collectively cost less than $50. Some of them cost less than $5. One of them was designed from a Bic pen mold. Another was born in a South Carolina garage and has never left the United States for manufacturing. The gap between what the industry sells you and what actually catches fish is not a matter of preference. It is a matter of data, traceable ownership, and markup that would make a farm executive blush. In this ranking, we go through 9 of the most commonly purchased lures in the American bass market. We evaluate 5 criteria: verified manufacturing origin, OEM cost relative to retail price, documented tournament performance on the Bassmaster and Major League fishing circuits, durability data from independent user reviews on Tackle Warehouse and Bass Resource, and finally, the trade-off each lure forces you to make. 9 lures, 5 get cut, 4 make the box. Stay until the end, because the number 1 lure in this ranking has been sitting in clearance bins at every Bass Pro Shops in the country for a decade. And it is the most tournament-proven soft plastic ever poured. We start at the bottom, the lure that sells the loudest promise for the most money and delivers the least of both. The first lure in the trash pile is the Rapala DT6, retailing at $13.99 to $15.99, depending on your retailer. The DT stands for Dives To, and the DT6 is supposed to hit 6 feet of depth. Rapala's marketing positions this as precision engineering, the Finnish heritage, the hand-tuned swimming action, the balsa construction. Here is what the balsa construction actually means in 2024. Rapala's own website lists manufacturing facilities in Finland, France, Estonia, and China. The DT series, not the original floater, not the iconic Countdown, is produced at international facilities where quality control consistency has been a documented discussion point among anglers for over a decade. On the Bass Resource Forum, a thread titled Rapala Quality Going Downhill from user CrankItDeep10 in 2022 accumulated 47 replies in 72 hours, with multiple users reporting inconsistent lip alignment and hook hangers that required retuning out of the box. The technical failure point is specific. A crankbait that does not track true is not just an inconvenience. It is a fish repellent, because distressed bait fish action is pattern dependent, not random. You need the wobble to be tight and repeatable. When it isn't, bass in pressured lakes, and most public bass lakes in this country are heavily pressured, will ignore it entirely. The material cost of an ABS plastic crankbait body with a Lexan lip, 2 treble hooks, and a split ring assembly manufactured at OEM scale is estimated at $1.80 to $3.20 per unit, based on wholesale catalog pricing from global sources for comparable 60mm hard bait specifications. At $14.99 retail, the markup exceeds 400%. The honest trade-off. The DT6 is a recognizable brand name with genuine heritage. The original floater that launched in 1936 out of Finland is a different product from a different era. But you are paying heritage tax on a crankbait that requires field tuning before it performs at spec. The veredito is simple. You're paying $15 for a reputation that was built by a different lure. That is not a deal. That is brand equity laundering. The pattern repeats. The badge gets more expensive. The plastic inside does not. The second lure in the discard pile is the Berkley Frit-Side Crankbait, priced at $11.49 to $12.99. Berkley is owned by Pure Fishing, which was acquired by Sycamore Partners, a New York-based private equity firm, from Newell Brands in November 2018 for $1.3 billion, according to a Newell press release filed with the SEC. Before Sycamore, Pure Fishing was owned by Newell. Before Newell, it was owned by Jarden Corporation, which acquired it in 2007 for $400 million. The brands you know, Abu Garcia, Berkley, Fenwick, Shakespeare, Ugly Stick, are all consolidated under this one private equity umbrella. That history is public record, disclosed in SEC filings, and relevant to exactly one question. When a company changes hands 3 times in 17 years, and each acquirer is optimizing for EBITDA and exit multiples, who is watching the hook gauge on the crankbait? The Frit-Side's specific failure point is documented in Tackle Warehouse user reviews. Multiple verified purchases note that the hooks, a cost center that PE-owned companies historically compress, are undersized for the lure body at the 5/8-ounce weight class, resulting in fish lost on the hook set in open water. One reviewer, username LedgeFishinKY, posted in March 2023, "Beautiful bait. Lost 3 fish in the first afternoon because the hooks fold at the point under pressure. Swapped to owner ST36X and it was a different lure. That is a $4 aftermarket hook upgrade on a $12 lure that requires a hook upgrade. Your real cost is $16. The Frit-Side's flat-sided profile does generate a legitimate tight wobble in cold water post-turnover. That is not marketing. That is physics confirmed by flat-sided crankbait behavior in water temperatures under 55 degrees Fahrenheit. Documented by Bass Angler Magazine field testing in the Ozarks in October 2022. That is the one honest thing the lure does. The trade-off. It does that one thing with underspecified hooks that you will need to replace. A lure that requires you to spend more money to become functional is not a value. It is a down payment. The pattern that repeats is always the same. The name on the package grows. The component inside it does not. The third lure in the discard zone is the Strike King KVD 1.5 square bill, retailing at $8.99 to $9.99. This one is more complicated than the Rapala or the Frit-Side because the KVD 1.5 actually catches fish. That part is not in dispute. Kevin Van Dam was a 4-time Bassmaster Classic champion and one of the most decorated tournament anglers in American history. His name on a lure carries legitimate technical credibility, not just marketing weight. The square bill design, a wide square lip that deflects off hard cover and triggers reaction strikes, is a proven concept with documented results in heavy cover situations. Multiple top 10 finishes on the Bassmaster Elite Series in 2021 and 2022 included square bill crankbaits in the weight slips. So far, so good. Here is where the analysis gets harder. The 1.5 is Strike King's entry-level square bill, and its hook quality reflects that position. The treble hooks that ship with the production model are Strike King's stock wire hooks, not the Gamakatsu grade hardware that ships with the company's tour grade hard baits. User reviews on Bass Resource from anglers in the R Bass Fishing thread, KVD 1.5 versus other square bills, from January 2023, consistently note hook deflection on the 1-2-ounce model when targeting fish near laydowns with heavier braid. The design works. The execution at this price point has a well-documented weak link, and the weak link is the first thing Bass put pressure on. This is the middle of the bad zone, a product that is almost there but charges you for the name of someone who never used this exact specification. The pattern that repeats is always the same. The name on the package grows. The component inside it does not. Here, the pattern changes, not in the packaging, in the numbers. The fourth lure in this ranking is the Strike King Tour Grade Football Jig, priced at $3.99 to $5.99, depending on weight class. And it is the first item in this list where the price and the performance point in the same direction. The football jig, a wide, flat-shaped lead head that keeps the lure upright on rocky bottom structure, is one of the most documented big bass producers in deep water situations. The format itself is not new. Ledge fishing with football jigs on Tennessee Valley Authority impoundments like Chickamauga, Guntersville, and Wheeler has been a documented summer pattern since at least the 1990s, when anglers began mapping the same creek channel drops that persist in those reservoirs today. What separates the Strike King Tour Grade version from the generic is a specific component combination. A 60-degree round bend Gamakatsu hook at this price point. Gamakatsu hooks are manufactured in Japan with a documented heat treat process that produces consistent temper, meaning the wire bends before it breaks, and the tip retains its point through multiple hook sets. That is a verifiable metallurgical difference, not a marketing claim. Tackle Warehouse reviewers note the hook holds up through 10 or more fish without resharpening, which at $4.99 per jig means your cost per fish is at the lower end of any category in this ranking. The trade-off is real. The powder coat paint on the head chips. On rocky ledges, it chips fast. Color matching to forage is an accepted factor in clear water fisheries like Table Rock or Bull Shoals, and a chipped jig in clear water is fishing at a disadvantage. The fix? Carry a permanent marker. A green pumpkin marker over a chipped watermelon head takes 11 seconds and costs nothing. The weakness exists. It is secondary. The thing that matters, the hook and the profile, works. The Veredito. This is the first lure in the ranking where you are paying for the component that catches fish, not the margin that funds a private equity firm's management fee. The fifth lure is the Zoom Trick Worm, and this is where the analysis shifts from mitigation to validation. The Trick Worm retails at $3.99 to $4.99 for a 20-count bag. 20 worms, that is 20 cents per bait. Zoom Bait Company is based in Bogart, Georgia. The company has manufactured soft plastics domestically for decades, not in China, not in a facility acquired by a conglomerate, but in Georgia. That is a verifiable fact, confirmed by the company's own production documentation and referenced in multiple tackle industry profiles. The Trick Worm is a 6.5-inch straight tail worm, salt impregnated for a controlled sink rate, with a buoyancy profile specifically calibrated for weightless presentations. What that means in field terms, rigged on a 3-nail wide gap hook with no weight. The Trick Worm sinks horizontally, nose first, with a subtle tail quiver that is produced by the salt distribution in the plastic body, not by any retrieve action from the angler. You can put it in the water and do nothing, and it still works. Walker Smith's review on Wired to Fish documented averaging 3 to 4 bass per individual worm in a 20-pack, that is potentially 80 bass per bag before replacement. The Omnia Fishing Platform's data aggregation from fishing reports in 2023 showed the Trick Worm appearing in 86% of successful finesse presentations logged by users in the Southeast U.S., and performing 13 times more effectively on shaky heads than the category average across comparable dollar per bait soft plastics. The trade-off: Soft plastic worms require more deliberate hook sets than hard baits. If you are fishing with too much slack or with line that has too much stretch, you will miss bites. That is a technique variable, not a product failure. The trick worm does not lie about what it is. A single category of failure, well understood, correctable with 20 minutes of practice. This is the honest half of the market. Small company, American Plastic, documented performance, verifiable math. The sixth lure in this ranking is the Gary Yamamoto Senko, and it is number 1. Not number 1 on a list assembled for this video. Number 1 by the evidence that has been accumulating since 1996, when Gary Yamamoto made the first mold from a Bic pen in his Phoenix, Arizona workshop, a fact reported by Bassmaster magazine in a founder profile that remains among the most cited origin stories in American bass fishing. Yamamoto told Bassmaster he originally wanted to make a twitch bait, but after field testing, the Senko worked better as a finesse bait. That redirection is the entire story. A founder who let the fish tell him what the lure was for. Gary Yamamoto Custom Baits is still founder-influenced and independently operated out of Apache Junction, Arizona. It has not been acquired by Sycamore Partners. It has not passed through Jarden Newell or any private equity vehicle. The Senko's technical construction is deceptively specific. The plastic formula contains a proprietary salt and mineral blend that produces a density asymmetry between the core and the body wall. That density difference is what creates the horizontal fall and the bilateral shimmy on the descent, not the shape and not the salt loading alone. Multiple imitators have tried to replicate the formula. Some catch fish. None produce the same fall rate and shimmy combination, as independently evaluated by Bass Resource Forum users in a 2022 thread titled Senko Clones, the Definitive Test, where user Sticky Fingers CA ran 7 clone brands against the original in a controlled dock test using a GoPro underwater camera mounted at 6 feet. The original Senko's fall rate was measurably slower and its side-to-side oscillation was consistently wider than all tested clones at the same rigging weight. The 5-inch model, the 910 series, retails at $749 to $899 for a 10-pack, 75 cents to 90 cents per bait. On the Tackle Warehouse Review Archive, the Senko has accumulated more than 2,000 verified ratings with an average of 4.9 out of 5.0 across all color variants. Fish USA reviewers consistently note catch rates across species beyond bass, walleye, pike, smallmouth in clearwater Great Lakes conditions, because the horizontal fall triggers predatory response across multiple species that opportunistically feed mid-column. The 6-inch 9L series Senko was used to catch a verified 10.2 to 7-pound spotted bass, a world record, by California tournament angler Brian Shishido in competition. That catch is on record. This is not a testimonial. It is a citation. The weakness of the Senko is concrete and not contested. The soft plastic is intentionally tender. That density that creates the action also means the bait tears quickly, particularly when wacky rigged without an O-ring. The fix has been standardized among tournament anglers for years. A VMC or Gamakatsu O-ring applied at the midpoint before rigging. With an O-ring, the bait's expected rigging life increases by 3 to 4 times, confirmed by angler reports across our Bass Fishing and Bass Resource. Without one, you're burning through 2 to 3 Senkos per session. With one, the math drops to fractions of $1 per fish. A founder who listened to the water. A formula no competitor has replicated in 28 years. A record fish. Tournament anglers who reach for it when the check matters. That is what this ranking was built to prove. The lure market in the United States operates on a predictable and repeatable mechanism. Private equity buys heritage brands, compresses component costs, maintains retail price, and funds the compression with marketing budgets that show up as pro-staff endorsements on television and social media. The brand name on the package grows more visible every year. The component inside it, the hook wire gauge, the hook eye diameter, the material density, the lip tolerances, is adjusted quarterly to protect margin targets set by fund managers who measure fishing tackle performance in EBITDA, not base per session. This is not an accusation. It is a description of a publicly documented ownership structure. Sycamore Partners, a New York private equity firm, paid $1.3 billion for Pure Fishing in 2018. That $1.3 billion does not come from charitable intent. It comes from acquiring assets that generate cash flow by maintaining retail price while managing input costs. You are not buying a lure from the person who designed it to catch fish. You are buying a lure from the capital stack that funded its acquisition. That distinction has consequences that show up at the hook tie. Before you open your wallet at the tackle shop or click Add to Cart on a lure you saw in a thumbnail, ask these 4 questions. First, who manufactures this lure and where? If the answer is a holding company with assets under management listed in a press release and production facilities listed on 3 continents, you are buying through a margin structure. Second, what is the hook source? If the package does not specify Gamakatsu, VMC, or owner, the hook is a cost center, not a design feature. Third, has this lure produced documented tournament weight slips in the last 3 years on the Bassmaster Elite Series or MLF circuit? Not an ambassador post, not a sponsored video. Tournament weight slips, which are publicly reported. Fourth, is the weakness disclosed anywhere, or does the manufacturer only communicate in superlatives? A brand that will not tell you what the lure does badly is a brand that does not trust you to evaluate the trade-off. 4 lures pass that filter. The Senko passes all 4. The Zoom Trick Worm passes all 4. The Strike King Tour Grade Football Jig passes 3 and has a disclosed weakness with a disclosed fix. The Z-Man Jackhammer Chatterbait passes all 4 with a price point that reflects what you are actually buying. A Gamakatsu hook, a hand-tied silicone skirt, a stainless blade co-designed with Evergreen International, and more Bassmaster Tour-level wins logged against its name than any other vibrating jig on the market, according to its specification sheet, which sources the claim to competitive circuit data. These 4 lures cost a combined $42 to $57 depending on where you buy them. They cover finesse, deep structure, mid-depth reaction, and shallow cover. That is most of what a season asks for. Now, the question that belongs in the comments: what is the most expensive lure you ever bought that you now know was a waste of money? And what did you finally replace it with that actually worked? Don't be vague about it. Tell us the lure, the price, and what replaced it. The real data lives in those comments, and that is where the next ranking starts.